I'm your host, Bradley Martin, and this is Clearing the Way, a resource for small business owners. Hello, humans. I am your host, Bradley Martin, and this is Clearing the Way, a resource for small business. I talk with sales and HR experts, other small business owners, and anyone else that can provide you and I with information to clear our way to success. In today's episode, it's the end of the year. Obviously, we got New Year's this next week. So wanted to talk about jumpstarting the new year. Obviously, that's hot during this couple weeks, but I've got my process. I kind of wanted to talk through some of that and the things that I've learned through the last few years of trying to fine tune what that looks like. Obviously, well, a quick little disclaimer. I'm still fine-tuning this process. There's several things that in the past couple years that I thought would work really well that didn't, and some things that I didn't think that would work that do work. So let's start with an assumption here. Let's assume that you set some goals or some resolutions, whatever you want to call them. Let's assume that you did that for the previous year. So step one for me is seeing how I did. Let's review. Let's figure out how we did. Look through whatever metrics I can track, if there are any metrics. How far off was I? What do I think went wrong? Did I do what I wanted to do? What do I think went wrong, and how can I improve on those things in the future? Where did things actually go wrong? That's step one for me. Now, in my experience, this is something that kind of needs to be ongoing. The years that I have had the most progress or seen the most progress are the years that I did this regularly, whether that's monthly, or quarterly, more frequently than that, maybe weekly, whatever that cadence looks like. The times where I've seen the most progress are when I'm looking at these things pretty regularly. So that might look like you just every Saturday you go in and you do a little recap, a little summary of how we doing, what are we looking like, am I moving in the right direction on all these things, or that might look like you and another human sitting down and once a month you get together and you talk through all of those things. For me, for a couple years, that was Neil and I. We would get together before he moved. We would get together. I don't know, it was monthly maybe every 2 months, and do that. So, but this is something, like I said, you can do it by yourself, you can do it with another human, but it allows you to make sure that you are progressing, moving towards the things that you say you want to be moving towards, but it also allows you to make adjustments. So if things aren't going as smoothly, or you're not progressing as quickly, or you can make adjustments to work through those, and that way you're not end of year and you look back and say, well, I didn't get anything done this year. Obviously, we don't want that. So let's check in with yourself regularly, and then if you have any big changes, make some adjustments. That's pretty simple. If there's big changes, make adjustments. That's okay. Okay, so now that I have, I've gone through how last year went. I know what needs to be adjusted. I know what I did wrong. Now I'm going to be looking ahead, and then figuring out how to work back. So whether that's 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, whatever that looks like, take those. I'm going to start there and work back. So, some examples. My one thing I want to do this year is go on 3 vacations. I want to take 3 trips this year. Okay. Well, what do I need to do that? What what needs to happen for that? Do I need to get a passport? What needs to happen for me to go on all these trips? How much do I need to make? All of the things. How do I make all of this happen? And get all of those steps down. You can be super specific here. You can be a little bit less and a little bit more broad, but figure out what you're gonna or what you want to do and work back from there. If I want to become proficient at 2 new skills, let's do some research. What do I need to do to accomplish that? Do I need a course? Can I kind of build my own on YouTube? Or if I need to take a course, where's it offered? How often is it offered? How do I enroll? What are what are the things that need to happen so that I can get to that end goal? And this is done for all of the things that are on my list. I like to try to keep my list relatively short, with some like long-term, maybe more directional goals, but and sometimes those longer-term ones are more targeted and specific, and sometimes they're not. They're a little bit more broad. So last year, I broke my list into a couple different categories. I had personal, career, health, and travel. And then within each of those, I had 1, 3, and 5 years. Now, this setup I liked this a lot. For this, I used MindMeister, which is a mind mapping tool or software. I used that. It was working relatively well, but then last year, honestly, there was just, with the changes, this is an area where I did not do well with. I had the career shifts and all of that, and then I didn't make adjustments. So I didn't complete regular check-ins because I didn't set up I didn't do the beginning of the year with anybody. So I didn't have that accountability piece. So like I've said, fine-tuning all of this, I had good processes. Some of it I replaced, some of it I didn't. So, that's where we're at, and that's why this is also a good episode for me. Little reminder. So I didn't readjust my my goals or my targets once I made a massive shift. So, so that happened. So for tracking a lot of these things, I've tried a ton of methods. I haven't found one that has been perfect for me yet. I've tried Airtable. Airtable probably worked the best for me because I was able to track progress, and I think that was probably the best so far. Last year I used MindMeister. Like I said, it's a mind mapping software. And then I had that as the first thing that opened up when I opened up Chrome. That was the first tab. I've tried Google Sheets. I've tried a notepad. None have worked fantastically. I'd say Airtable I was able to track the best, but it was the least visually appealing. So it made everything a little bit more difficult. I think this year what I'm going to do is use Notability, which is what I keep all of my notes on currently. I think I'm just going to try using that and do it that way. I haven't decided yet. And this, so there's that piece. Now, the most important piece of the puzzle, in my opinion, and that's the accountability piece. So like I have already mentioned a couple times, the meetings with Neil. When I noticed the most progress, I had at least one person that I was checking in with regularly. And that person knew exactly what I was trying to accomplish, and they knew my goals. We came up with them together. In the way that looked, Neil and we would plan a little date night. I'd make dinner. We would sit down, we'd talk through what we wanted to work on in the coming year, why we wanted to do those things, and then we would jot down what we needed to do to get there. And then every month or two, we would get together, same thing. How are we doing? What are you struggling with? What can I help you with? Let's talk through it all. That worked pretty well because we weren't in the same industry, but we were both self-employed at a similar level. So a lot of the challenges each of us were going through were either similar or one of us had already kind of had to deal with those things. So, and our perspectives are different enough that when I had an idea, he could kind of counter that, and the same for him. So I think that worked really well. I think the best version of this, would include 3 people. I think this might change, but right now I think the best version of that accountability piece is 3 people. One would be someone who's a little bit further along than you. Let's call them an elder or someone who has just a little bit more experience to lean on. 2 would be someone more similar, like Neil was. So somebody in a similar situation, similar stage of life, similar career, something somewhat similar, so that you can kind of have some type of familiarity with the issues that you're going through. And then the third one is somebody that has a direct tie to some of the outcomes. So a close friend, a significant other, something like that. Now, one of those people might cover a couple of those, and that's fine. But I think the 3 of those roles kind of would create the perfect situation for accountability. And then just check in with them regularly. And in my opinion, those would be separate conversations, maybe staggered throughout the year. So you're talking with each of them, on a staggered months or whatever. But like most things that I like to talk about, something in these cases is better than nothing. So if you can only do meetings with yourself, that's fine. You can only meet with your significant other, that's fine. If you've just got the elder, that's fine. Somebody else is super important, though, in my opinion. The accountability piece is huge. And actually, I say somebody else, but if the accountability piece is just yourself, if you are disciplined enough to hold yourself accountable for those things, that's also great. Just check in with yourself regularly then. So, like I mentioned, when Neil moved, it kind of threw a little bit of a wrench into my rhythm. And I replaced a lot of the process, but I didn't replace all of it. And that is where that accountability piece, that was the big one. That's the big piece that I adjusted a lot of things, but didn't replace that. So it didn't, when I veer off course, there isn't that course correct, which is something that's something that will be changing. That's by far the most important piece for me. So that's all. Key takeaways here are: check in regularly with yourself or with others. If you make a big change, adjust, reevaluate, see if your end goals are still the same. Like, you might have a big life event that happens that shifts all of the things you're trying to do. That's fine. Just make sure you're staying on top of that, because if not, then you end up 2 years from now or a year from now and you say, wow, I'm in the same spot. What happened? Well, this is what happened. You didn't adjust your goals. You didn't keep track of everything. And then obviously, like I've said a couple times, the accountability piece is most important to me. Make sure you've got a couple people that know about what you're trying to do, and make sure that you're going to hold each other accountable to those things. And that doesn't mean you don't have to be a dick about it. You don't have to be yeah, I mean, just make sure you know about it and your friends know about it, or whoever these people are, and be able to question each other and try to tame that ego a little bit so that it doesn't feel like an attack, but know that each of you are trying to better the other person. So, if you've got a method or a way that you're tracking things, or if you've got anything that you use that you think would be helpful, let me know. Like I said, my process it's not perfect for sure. Clearly, I talked to you through some of the things that I've not done well the last year. But I've kind of fine-tuned this and still working through it. And I think in general, I've figured out the things that don't work. Now it's just figuring out a couple extra pieces that fit in here that do work. So if you've got any suggestions, let me know. And until next time, have a wonderful year. I hope you had marvelous holidays, the best Christmas or and New Year's. Well, I guess New Year's hasn't happened yet since this is coming out on the 27th. But yeah, have a good New Year's. I hope you have a good New Year's and this weekend. And that's all. I'll quit rambling. It's late. This is another last minute episode, but we'll get better. We will get better in the future. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Share this with all your human friends, and I'll see you next time. See ya. I'm your host, Bradley Martin, and this is Clearing the Way, a resource for small business owners.